So, first thing you gotta do before you start on anything, give it a good wash. I'm gonna start sanding it down with some 80 grit on the DA and see where that takes me. I may actually have to strip this hood to bare metal. So this is the original finish that I'm working with. It doesn't look very good. Thinking, since this was originally a Florida truck, possibly that's the issue. So everything's all like crazy cracked here. So I sanded this whole area down here with 80 grit on the DA, and I pretty much have to go right down to the factory primer coat in order to get rid of it. So as you can see, it's still there. So tomorrow I'm gonna go pick up a gallon of aircraft stripper from a supply store. Now I'm gonna use this Proform aircraft paint stripper. I don't normally strip parts to bare metal, but this definitely needs it. So I asked at the supply store, because they had a couple of different brands, and they said this one was the most popular. That was their biggest seller. So that tells me it probably works better than the other brand. So basically, instructions are on the back here, and basically says sand the entire surface with some 80 grit to get better penetration. I already did that. Put it on, apply it with a brush, like got one of those, and then once it's all blistered up and done its job, I got an old spreader, scrape the surface down. So I put you up in the holder, get started here for a minute, and see how this works. Now, only just got the first application down. It's kind of a jelly kind of a product. It's not runny like water. It's already started to blister up along the edge here. It looks like it's starting to work down in here. We'll wait and see. It's only been a few minutes, so I'll give this, like I said, some time and come back and see just how good of a job it really did. Okay, been like 20 minutes. I'm not real impressed. I started scraping some of it off, and some areas it's burnt right down to the primer and blistered up, like over there, and it blistered up nice here, like right off the start. But other areas seem to be unscathed, like it did nothing in this area at all. So I don't think it was me that in my application, but it's a possibility. I had that little fan running over there, and it's a possibility that that little bit of air movement dried the solvents or whatever out of the chemicals in the stripper before they got a chance to like bite in. So I'm gonna scrape this off and I'm gonna apply another coat. Alright, so I've got a second coat down, and I've applied an absolute insane amount of stripper to the top of this hood. Now, if it doesn't work this time, my honest opinion will be that this product sucks. Okay, so it's been another half hour. I'm not impressed. And like, it's hardly even reacting around areas that I sanded to bare metal. There was a couple of rust spots. I figured I'd sand them right out. It's not doing what it's supposed to be doing. I'm thinking products have been compromised by rules and regulations by the government. Because I used to buy a different product from the hardware store. It was called Dad's, and it was a paint stripper, and literally one small quart of that would have done this whole hood 2 times over. So I guess it is what it is. I'm gonna clean this up with the squeegee, take it outside, and wash it with some soap and water, and it looks like I'll be finishing it with 80 grit on the DA. Alright, so that's all scraped off. I got some soap and water mixed up in this gallon sprayer. It's just dish detergent and water. And I'm just going to spray this down. I need to open up that valve a little more. This will help to neutralize the... every fucking time. Neutralize the paint stripper. Okay, got that all washed and rinsed. You noticed I didn't even have gloves on. I just barehanded it. The soap and water in the sprayer neutralized the chemicals in the stripper. Because normally you get a little drop of that paint stripper on your bare skin, and you can't get to the sink fast enough to wash that off with soap and water. This stuff, I didn't get it on my bare skin when it was fresh, but you know, washing this all off, not even a tingle. So yeah, I'd have to say that paint stripper is crap. So I'm gonna let this dry up out here if it doesn't get rained on. Maybe getting rained on would be beneficial, I don't know. But once it's dried up, move it back in the garage, and I'm not left with any choice. 80 grit on the DA, and get this knocked down so I can get some primer on it. Now, after an absolute ridiculous amount of sanding, I think I'm ready to shoot some primer tomorrow. All the top surface now pretty much stripped down. 80 grit, you can see pretty coarse scratch. And get out different sander. I'm gonna go finish DA sander. Got 220 on there. Got my fan out of the shed. Get fired up here and basically just knock all these spots down so that they're smoother. I didn't bother stripping this side edge away on both sides. The paint wasn't all cracked. It was all just the top surface, probably just from the sun beating down, whatever reason, these side pieces here were in good condition, so I just scuffed them back till I basically got down to the base coat. And yeah, so I'll get busy on that, and then I'll bring you back. Now I'm done with the 220. Basically, it's just going over these areas here to help smooth them up a little bit more. So now I got wax and grease remover and a pump sprayer. Got a nice clean microfiber cloth. Give this a good wipe down, and get ready to shoot some primer. Okay, so as always, as long as I can keep getting my hands on this, Dominion Sure Seal Ultra Primer. Now this is a DTM high solid primer, so it's direct to metal, and it's also direct to E-coat. E-coat's that black finish that comes on your replacement parts. Goes right on there. So yeah, this is a high build primer. It's also a high solid. Get some of that mixed up, ready to spray.
Edges, edges, edges.
So, as you saw, first coat's down. I got some more primer mixed up. I went over that pretty quick. I was moving, getting that first coat down. This coat, going a little bit slower, trying to get some really good build. Now, that's one quick coat, one heavy coat. It looks like it came up really nice. I still have a bit of primer left in the gun, so I'm gonna, study the hood here and look for spots that are possibly a little thinner. I know there's a little bit of a thin spot here, because this hood changes shape. I kept trying to go in straight lines. Well, eventually you run out of straight lines, and you know, you got to follow that curve a little bit sometimes. So there's a little spot there. There might be a little spot over here. I'll run primer until the gun's empty. Okay guys, so all primed up here. Looks real good. And I can't stress enough to all the DIY painters like myself that you do not need an expensive $400, $500, $600 spray gun to paint at home. A guy who buys a $400, $500, $600 primer gun needs to be working in a production shop with a guy at home. Nice simple spray gun. Get the job done. Okay guys, getting back on to the top side of the hood now. This has sat in the garage for a while since the underside was done. I'm just getting back to it, even though this is all probably part of all the same video. Now, it sat in there for a while. I don't know if you can see, try to get you a shot here. All these little tiny blisters on it, and it is covered in these little tiny blisters. And I'm not 100% sure where they came from. They weren't there after I primed it, but now this thing sat for some time and they're there. I have a suspicion, but I'm not sure, that when it was sitting in there in the garage and I was working on the truck, I was doing a lot of metal cutting and stuff with the grinder and the cutting wheels, and the sparks didn't fly in and land on top of this before I had it covered, and everywhere there's a little spark landed and penetrated the primer that it didn't oxidize and swell it up. But the thing is, you wouldn't think that they'd do that. You think they'd land on the surface and there'd just be like a little rust dot. So not sure where these blisters came from, but unfortunately gonna have to sand this entire hood back. Even though the underside's painted, I'll have to really try to avoid the edge right here all the way around. Prime the entire hood a second time. Okay guys, so here's a really good shot of what I'm talking about. Those little blisters. There's no rust in the bottoms of them, so it wasn't water in the airline that landed there and got trapped underneath the primer, or there'd be a rusty spot. There just seems to be like it boiled up. I did this a little bit with 220. This is going to take a little bit more aggressive paper than that. I don't have anything in between, so I got to step all the way down to 80 grit here. Fortunately, I have an endless supply of 80 grit as long as I work where I work. We get vendors come in, drop off sample discs, and you know, we just don't get a box. You know, we get a case, and you know, they have never been able to beat the disc that we're using at the shop now. So these become free to good home, and since I'm about the only other guy in the building that does metal work and stuff at home, I pretty much have an endless supply of these suckers. Okay guys, let me catch you up where I'm at now. Almost back to square one. Took it outside, washed it with soap and water, dried it off with air from that fan instead of the compressor, and then wiped it down, wax and grease remover again. I put a 2-inch tape edge along here on the underside, so there's a flap hanging out, you know, because this side's already done under here. Yeah, stay out of the water. and put it into a nice wet coat of that Dominion Sure Seal 2K primer, and I let it sit outside overnight. It was a nice evening, so there was no point bringing it back in the garage. So the next morning I brought it back in the garage. I got to work on fixing up the body work that I had done previously. It needed redone pretty much, and then I was concerned about the blistering. I scuffed it down with 220, shot a coat of epoxy primer on there, and then proceeded to put another coat of the Dominion Sure Seal on top of that, and then I left it for a few days. Now I'm back. A few imperfections I saw right away. I got red glaze in those. And then, of course, just a quick coat of flat black aerosol as a guide coat. So, got my dual density block, 400 paper, bucket of water the dog was drinking out of. Ready to wet sand this down, see where I'm at, if everything's good. Get this into, get some sealer on it, base and clear. So let me wet sand this down, see what happens. Okay, hood's all sanded, washed, wax and grease remover. I already tacked it off. Sealer's mixed in the gun, so you might as well just shoot it.
Whoa, that takes fun today.
Well, isn't that wonderful? A little spider guy. Really high as high can be, walking through the sealer. Okay, so I only put down like a medium wet coat of sealer, just one. And this has been curing now like 45 minutes. I want this good and cured before I put the first color down. And if this was maybe you were painting like yellow over black, maybe the better choice would be to put like maybe 2 or 3 light coats of sealer on, get it covered up, apply it more like base coat than a sealer coat. But for me, I was already had whites and grays going on here from the primer coats. So one, kind of a medium wet coat of sealers enough, and give it lots of time to dry. Lots of time. You want those solvents to get out of there, because if you don't give it enough time, you're like, oh yeah, that looks like it's nicely cured, and you start throwing on some more layers of paint and clear and whatnot, and this coat isn't 100% dried out yet, you're gonna get solvent pop. Okay, so this is cured for at least 45 minutes. So like I say, now I'm going to put down my first coat of color. Alright, realize that doesn't look like much. But there's going to be a pair of stripes going down either side of these valleys. And as such, it's the same principle. Gotta wait like 10 minutes between coats. So I'm going to put this on like 3 coats, really thin, and then I'm going to apply tape line right here on each side of the valley, and then we'll shoot gray. Now, I've got 10 more minutes to go before I tape this in. And this stripe changed like 3 or 4 times in my head while I was doing it. It was supposed to be originally 2 1/8" black stripes following this trough down on each side. And then I thought, well, what if I paint this whole center section in black? And then my third idea I came up with was run the 1/8" tape down each side of the trough and fill in the trough with tape. Now there'll be the 2 troughs will be black, headed down towards the grill. So that's where I think I'm going with this. Now, I don't have a whole lot of experience taping in something like this. So if it's not perfect, it is what it is. Okay, went over that with the tack cloth. I'm going to put down 3 coats of base. I'm just going to show you the first coat. Now, first coat of base gray down. You can see it's kind of even here, a little patchy there. Not a big deal. 2 more coats to go. Now, what did happen right away, caught a fly in the spray there. The fly went through while I was spraying, and I drove it down. 2 of them, one after the other, in the same pass down this hood. There's one there, and there's one here. I'll pluck them out. I'll scuff that with some 1500 once this is good and dry, and then move on to second and third coat. Now I got the tape all peeled off, as you can see, for my black stripes, and I ended up with 2 spots, unfortunately, where the gray somehow found its way under the edge of the tape, and that's there and there. And you get on that little shadow there, little shadow there. Best thing I can do is just touch that with a little 1500 or 2000 grit and clear it. Alright, so I had another little spot I saw when I lifted the tape off. Peeled the black up right here in the corner. So I'll put some tape back on, roll that piece of tape, dip it in the base coat, dab it on there. Doesn't look like much now. Give that lots of time because it's really thick. Dry down, rub it with some 1200, peel the tape off, then we should be able to hit this with some clear. Okay, so I've dealt with these situations the best I can. I'm gonna wipe this down with a tack cloth one last time and then hit it with 3 coats of clear. So here it is, next morning out in the driveway. Actually, once the clear had cured for about 4 hours, I brought it out here to finish curing, and then it sat out here all night actually. So it does have a little bit of stuff out of the air has landed on it. It's not stuck on it, it's just landed on it. This is a really nice job no matter what. Out of a dirty, filthy old garage. So thanks for watching, everybody. Till the next one, as always, peace.